Hello everyone, this is Chris. How are you all today? This comes to you from Boston. We're very busy here, working hard to stay connected to you and all of our other peers and colleagues here in Boston. We're really well here at Launch Mechanic, and I hope all of you are also feeling well. So welcome everyone. We're here today to first talk about what's happening here in Boston, given our profoundly changed business environment, and secondly, what we can do to create a plan that's going to help us stay engaged during this period and positioned to grow when we move into this next phase of change. And we're going to be diving into that really fast as we get this webinar started. And so let's jump in. Many of you have reached out to me during this period. Thanks for that. And like you, I want to be in touch with my colleagues that are feeling like proactive mode is where they want to be. And this is the theme of this discussion today. I'm excited to have colleagues from Scale Up Hub, CTA at Boston, and others that I've worked with over the years joining the webinar. Welcome, everyone. And I know some of you are just meeting us for the first time, and it's a pleasure to meet you, and I'm really delighted that you are listening in today. You can see from the photos that Launch Mechanic works with many communities that you might be familiar with, whether it's an SBI or a COA or the Venn Center, and I'm sharing the names of some of the clients we've worked with or are working with so that you can see we are in very good company. What we all have in common is we're all people who are working in technology and building businesses. What you also have in common is that you're in this huge community of companies in Canada that want to grow their business in the US. If you're listening in today, that means you've had your radar on and you're honing in on an opportunity that you're not quite sure what to do with. Maybe you've been thinking about expanding in the US, or you're in the early stages of your launch, or you just spent a year down here and you want to stay connected or gain insight on how you can leverage that first year that you just completed. You want to get to that next level of success. And what I can tell you is that one thing businesses will always need are people who can solve critical problems. And those people are you. So this discussion today is to share with you what I'm seeing on the ground right now and where you might fit into that and why you need to keep moving ahead with your US launch and plan now more than ever. I've been speaking with many of you, and what you're telling me is there are a few things that are keeping you up at night right now. One of the most common ones is, how are we going to get the attention of our customers in this current environment? Others have told me they've reached a full stop in their businesses right now, and they're just not sure how to proceed. Most of you are already or have made significant operational changes around the way you communicate, and that is fantastic. So great job, by the way, if you're already doing that, if you transitioned over. Communication is first and foremost. Regardless of where you are at with your movement forward in the US, you all have told me, I want to be able to help to continue to serve my customers. I want to help. How can I help? And what that translates to is, what can I do to keep my business alive and, in the best case, growing? This is the conversation that we're having no matter what sector you're working in. It's about what you can do. Today we're going to talk about how you can dig in and start serving your customers in this environment. And that's where your proactive management of this situation and its impact on your business begins. We're going to talk about the opportunities you can find in your space here in Boston. And if this is your first launch, we're going to talk about what you can do right now to get that moving. This discussion is intended to provide food for thought as you contemplate how to take control of your business, which of course impacts everything that you've worked for up to this point. We are going to work together today to help you determine what those first steps are that you can take to get you moving in the right direction. So what are we talking about today? This is our goal. I would like to work within this next hour to explore how we can get clear on not only how we're going to survive the shifts that we're experiencing right now, but also to land on a way that helps position your business to capture the opportunities that are here now and coming soon. What I believe what this is really about is that this is not the end of a way that we used to work, but rather it's the beginning of a new paradigm of working that will be grounded in rapid economic shifts and other impacts. Because of that, we need to think about how we're going to structure our businesses and our approaches to the market in a way that's flexible and open enough that we can respond to what's needed as part of our overall modus operandi. We want to be able to have businesses that are operationally prepared and have mechanisms that allow us to quickly adapt to our changing customer needs for not only the next several months, but also for the year ahead and for what is perhaps a new era of change that is now. The second thing is I want to have some first steps that will drive specific actions that we can take. We all feel like we need to do something right now and that we have to do it quickly. Many of the companies I'm talking to feel a great business uncertainty as they cannot get the attention of their customers. This uncertainty makes us feel like we don't know what to do. Where we want to land today is we want to explore with you what is the one step you can take right now that sets your business back in motion, because once you get your team back in motion, you're creating that first momentum that's needed to get your business in the mix of opportunity that absolutely is there. So let's talk about what do we know. There's so much to cover here. And I'm in the same boat as you are. I have a business, I have a family, we watch the news, and all of this news and information is coming at us at a pace that's just overwhelming. Let's focus on what do we know, and we can go from there. Like you, I have spent hours and hours looking at all of this, and one thing I was struck by recently is that our experts are making predictions about when the economy will get back on track and when we can all get back to work. The predictions range from several weeks to a year out. If we're being candid, no one really knows when precisely we will be, quotation marks, back at work. As our experts speculate, we're trying to plan. But if we don't know when the market will open up again or speed up, and we don't know when we can travel or not, that influences how we think about international growth. But physically traveling to a new market is only now a barrier that we're creating. The world has never seen this much of a shift to working virtually in all of history. We now know that we don't have to be physically present to communicate and connect. I think we already knew that, but we were never forced to. Likely that world will return in some fashion, but that can't be a barrier, and we're seeing that it's not. What we need to pay attention to is, what is this environment telling me? And we have to work through that process of what to do next. So what we can predict for sure is that travel between now and a year from now and beyond is going to be sporadic. It's likely that Canada and the US will be among the first to open up and share border crossings again. However, we also know that travel could be restricted, and on we go. So we can predict that the ability to travel will be variable. What we also see in Boston is that businesses are scrambling to define how to operate in this environment. Everyone I talk to is trying to make sense of the situation as it relates to their business. And what businesses are quickly realizing is that there's power, support, creativity, and new actions when they band together around a common issue or opportunity. And by banding together in this collaborative way, they're drawing the attention of large partners who have funding and who have new challenges that need to be addressed. What we have is an atmosphere of companies that are proactively seeking opportunity, and we have an atmosphere of energy and an atmosphere of action. What we can learn from this is that getting involved and putting yourself out there in a targeted way is the way to become a part of the opportunities that are bubbling up from this whole situation. And if you do that now, you'll be a part of the future solutions that emerge. The other thing that we can clearly see that's a direct result from this situation is that our very own customers are stressed as well. Knowing even these few things actually gives you some insight for where to start. When you add what you're learning about to the fact that you're connected to this massive market here in Boston. You're adjacent to it. What this means, especially for Canadian companies, is that you have a unique market moment to position yourself, immerse yourself in your communities here, and increase your visibility in Boston. You can become known in your Boston community as a leader and a solution provider who was there in this environment as things began changing. As companies connect online, think about how you can best engage with them through new communities online. And as large enterprises here are looking for more cost-effective and easily deployable solutions, you can consider what you can offer them, whether it's something you've already built or a piece of what you built, or maybe it's something you can develop quickly. But your most important job is to understand what your US customers need right now, tomorrow, and then the day after. And it's that day-to-day environment that we have to respond to in our businesses right now. Here's an example. There's a large incubator here that many of you know called Mass Challenge, and it's home to over 1,000 startups from all around the world. Many people don't know this, but Mass Challenge actually was developed during the last recession in 2008, and it was developed as a way for entrepreneurs to gather together and share resources. In light of where we are now, Mass Challenge has grown. It's got this massive ecosystem, and they joined together quickly and produced a COVID-19 summit a few days ago. They were able to bring in some incredible thought leaders, startups, enterprises, people from the public sector, and they all got together to share resources in this 3-hour summit where there's this huge chat session taking place. Well, during that chat session, so many points of engagement popped up. There were so many opportunities that were being discussed for not only healthcare startups, but for companies from every sector. And all I had to do was register and listen in. So I did find an opportunity for one of my clients. It's been very illuminating, and I was able to follow up on that. So these types of gatherings are taking place across sectors, areas of expertise, and some of them are thematic. And this content in these communities are all there right now for you to engage with. The other takeaway from that discussion, which was really compelling, was there was some talk about the telemedicine movement. And basically what happened was this ER physician came on and she said, this whole telemedicine regulation has now been fast-tracked. We've been working on it for 10 years, but because of this situation, we have moved it forward. And so they have solved a huge problem in telehealth here in Boston. These kinds of sea changes are happening right now. And if you're connected to the community here, you can jump right in and become a part of creating solutions. Creating opportunities together during these online discussions is one example of how the business community is reacting to the environment. And it's a unique opportunity for you to get in the mix and begin to make your business known. There's a window of time right now where everyone's watching to see who's going to get involved. So this is really your moment like there has never been a moment before. And let me emphasize that if you take steps to place yourself strategically in that mix, you're going to be remembered for making a commitment, and you're going to stand out because of your decision to do this early on. The side effect of taking this action is that you're going to be extremely well positioned for when the economy shifts back into high gear, which it undoubtedly will, and when that happens, you'll be there. Again, I'm sharing with you what we see happening here on the ground and how the leading Boston-based founders and technologists are showing up. So let me go into a bit more detail about what this means in terms of steps you can take. If you're in the technology space, then I recommend that you reflect on these 4 things. First of all, you need to reflect on your offer and ask yourself if you're connected and tapping into the shifts in today's Boston market. Regardless of where you are on your Boston launch path, whether it's early stage, growing fast, or mature, you want to connect your work to the opportunities that you can identify. If you're looking ahead and planning for a launch over the next year, I'd recommend that you do everything you can right now to prepare and position your business, identify prospects, and craft offerings so that they're relevant to what your American customers need right now. Second, engaging your customers in Boston with clear messaging that conveys that you've adjusted or adapted your offer is paramount. Your customers want to understand that you have transitioned to this new market reality. Third, if you get that high level and differentiated message crafted, you'll be ready to start talking with those customers and building that network. And finally, by thinking about who your customers are now and taking their feedback continuously to inform your offer, take that feedback and feed it back to your offer, and think about how you can serve based on that feedback, you'll be ready to capture new business and serve your customers. I would strongly recommend that you think about how you're going to action these four things so that you're totally lined up and ready to go for when the market re-engages. As I mentioned earlier, there are so many opportunities in the market right now that we're seeing and reading about each day. Aside from the obvious healthcare opportunities, there's the massive 5G opportunity, there's opportunities in fintech. And just this morning, I was scouring my email inbox and I just pulled up a few things. There's programs for 3D printing and food entrepreneurship, and even Startup Palooza is gone virtual. Life is moving ahead online. On the other hand, and perhaps more critically, I read a story this morning that had quoted the president of Massachusetts General Hospital, Peter Slavin, and Peter said really that he's just overwhelmed. He said, "We used to worry about a whole host of things I can't even remember what those things were. We get up every morning, we fight COVID-19, we try to get a little bit of sleep at night, and then we wake up in the morning and do the same thing all over again. And we anticipate being in that mode for the foreseeable future. We can't ignore that healthcare and the opportunities to assist in solving this problem are front and center. So if you do have a healthcare product, this is your moment to pause and figure out how you can help people like Peter, who wakes up every day looking for solutions." Now, I know I'm stating the obvious, but the point is to look at your offer and adapt it so that it's something he can really use right now. And a day will come when he is out of that crisis mode, and we all are. But what will follow are the opportunities to serve intensely. Because once this market comes back, there will be a focus and intensity from people like you who took the steps today to prepare for those tomorrow opportunities. Let's talk about what we're going to walk through today. We're talking about how we can make our businesses known and felt, how to be clear with our new offer as we transition our engagement, how champions in our market will be important as we raise our profile and become known, and how we can best help, what ways we can help our customers. These are the things that we can focus on right now, and they'll influence how we develop our larger plan for launch. The key to working on these effectively to make sure that we go into it with the right mindset. We have to get in the right frame of mind that's going to allow us to see the opportunities that are available to us. The way that I'm looking at this is that there are hundreds of startups, thousands of startups, small businesses, and growth companies right now who are trying to figure out what their approach will be or what next steps they should take. Your mindset is what you need to be most aware of. So let me explain that. When I think about the hundreds of Canadian companies that are in market right now, this is what we're seeing. Our Canadian companies here in Boston are Canada's best entrepreneurs, best in class for technology, best in class for entrepreneurship and taking initiative. Now, a large group of the Canadians that make their launch here have to determine how to get started and find customers and just figure out how to get traction. If you're in this group or even thinking about getting in this group, I will tell you that you are in a class of your own. You are Canada's future global leaders and global market makers. Those of you who are launching here understand the market potential. And if you've already learned, and you've already learned that to go global, starting here in a US city is a springboard to that larger market. Having said all that, I can also see why, if you're just getting started, let's just say you're a few months into it, or even a year for that matter, that you might completely put the brakes on and say, hold everything. And what I want to tell you is that I understand the impulse, but the mindset that will most benefit you in this environment is a mindset that's focused on movement, expansion, visibility, and action. You want to create a mission that your business is going to be actively present in this market from this point forward. The bottom line here is that you have to keep going and keep preparing, because if you stop now, you'll lose all the momentum that you've created. Your network will start to cool, and when the market re-engages or upshifts, you'll have to start all over again. What you want to really reflect on is, what is the investment that you've made up to this point, and how can you optimize that investment? Yes to watching cash flow. Yes to looking at efficiencies in your operation. These are smart, necessary defensive moves. The other big thing that you need to do is be offensive. And that means committing and executing on your US launch plan. If you're in that group, my advice is, don't halt your progress here, and if you were thinking about launching, go forward and activate your plan. It's the time to push through, prepare, and plan for an effective engagement in the coming months. Work on all of your prep and your positioning now, and you'll be very well aligned for success when the market turns. So if you're in that first group of early launchers or launching now, take action today. There's another group of companies, and I've worked with many of you in the last few years through ScaleUp Hub, and you know who you are. You have solid traction in Canada. Your teams have been down here and either made sales or have an incredible pipeline developed as a result of your efforts. If you're a Canadian company with a proven record of traction and you're ready to grow fast, there's also no better time than now to expand your marketing and business development activities here. Most importantly, you have to be aware that your strategy has been, in recent months, where it's been and where it needs to evolve to, and you have to quickly do that. If you're in this group, your community is looking for you to show up here and lead the way through the chaos. What you want to do is show up, engage proactively, and begin delivering value as quickly as you can. Blaze your trail. What you don't want to do is become a ghost. Think about all of the progress you've made and what you've learned. At a minimum, you have to stay visible. How are you going to do that? Even minimal visibility requires a plan. If you have been trying to get your customers' attention and also worked hard to differentiate yourself in this market, now's the time to show your customers that you're here and that you can navigate these new customer conversations proficiently, and that you can convert those discussions to real solutions that are simple and easily deployable and high value. So the mindset is precision discovery, translation, product development expertise that's nimble and relevant. With your resources and large teams, you can do this. So this is a time for all Canadian companies, from early stage and startups to legacy companies and fast growth companies, to put a flag in the ground, make yourself known, and lead the way. This is a time where the real leaders in our technology communities are going to emerge and be heard. Regardless of what stage of launch or growth you are, what are those first practical steps that you can take as you adjust your plans during this time, or if you're creating them for the first time? I want to talk about steps you can actually take that you can action after we're done speaking today. So the first thing is, the first thing I want to raise is how to get the attention of your customers. You're telling me that it's been tough to get customers on the phone. And one of the reasons for this is that the solution you're offering in its current form is just not resonating, either because it's not critical or it's not relevant to their problems right now. It doesn't mean that your overall solution is irrelevant. It means that your customer is so overwhelmed with what's happening to their businesses and their workload that what you're offering can't help them today, or it feels like it can't help them right now, just in this current moment. The work that needs to be done here is that you've got to reposition your current offer. You've got to adapt it to meet what they do need, and you may need to market it differently as well. Now, some of you have already done this, which is phenomenal. And just last week, I learned from one of our scale-up hubbers that they are shifting their focus purely on how to help their customers adjust to remote working. And that was outside their core product and their core capability. Their customers are responding in a way that is unprecedented for this company. They are paying attention, and their efforts will pay off in spades later. If we go through this exercise of finding our people here and build this new engagement into our launch and business plans, what will happen is we'll start collecting deep insight to our industry and our customer needs. So I mentioned earlier we had that big online summit, and that brought Boston Children's Hospital, MITRE, and some other big players together. And it was an incredibly rich discussion with many opportunities to engage. So I would recommend that you listen in to at least part of this so you can get a sense of how you can engage with all of the different communities. And if you need help with connecting there, just let me know and I can help you out at the end of the webinar, or you can just shoot me a message if you need to. So you're looking for what are the opportunities that came out of this. Again, 2,000 people viewed the video. There were 400 people on the call when it happened live. And if you watched the chat live, you could see so many opportunities coming up in the conversation. So if we go through this exercise of finding our people here in these online communities, and we build this new engagement into our launch and plan, what will happen is we'll start collecting deep insight to our industry and our customer needs. This is a step that you can take today. Here's an example. Just last night, I was flipping through LinkedIn, and I was really impressed with what has come together so quickly in the way of solutions and products and tools. Everything has just crystallized in the last 7 days, but it's also been packaged and it's being marketed. So it's incredibly nimble and quick. It's phenomenal. I know you're seeing this in your own communities. The first one that I found when I was looking through it was this colleague of mine, Nusha Gailey, who I first met when she was working with Sensible Cities here in Boston. Sensible Cities it's another MIT lab, another great MIT lab, physicists, biologists, social scientists, who all gather together to help us learn about cities in a smart way. And when I met Nusha a few years ago, she was very simply testing a robot that could take samples from wastewater out of sewers. And her theory was that we could learn a lot about the communities around these sewer systems by studying and analyzing the content of the water. I definitely felt at that time that she was introducing a very novel, it was like an early adoption type of tool, and she completed her work at the lab and demonstrated the value of it by determining opioid usage in certain communities. While her original value proposition was focused on opioids, she couldn't have predicted that she'd find her company pivoting just in the last few weeks to launch a biotest that tests the wastewater epidemiology that can help capture individuals that aren't being tested for the coronavirus. So here's an example of taking your original solution and applying it to solve another problem. So you're not really changing your solution, you're building on it. It's like an additive process. So you're solving a different problem, but you're using the same solution. And Nusha has done that very effectively here. Take a look at what you're offering, who you're offering it to. Is there an opportunity here to apply your solution to a new audience? Reflect on that possibility. Aside from scouring our online communities and getting inspiration from our peers and our colleagues, and our competitors, by the way, our first order of business is to do a deep dive with our existing customer base and gather feedback from our customers right now. We should be doing this anyway, and even when there isn't a crisis or a big economic shift like this, but now it's even more important. I worked with a legacy business recently that offers a solution for the transportation industry. The company is called NBI Solutions. It's based out of Halifax, and they offer this fleet tracking solution. The product lives in a very mature space, and so the challenge here was for us to look at how we could differentiate the product amongst its competition. In NBI's case, they already have a major presence in Canada. They're very successful. They're known for adding value by optimizing their geotab tool and their data, and they stand out for their integrations and their high level of service. Even with this, we were challenged to get the attention of our prospects. So by working closely with NBI, I was able to identify a very special feature that was rapidly growing but not yet placed front and center in their offering. Now, Boston's a leader in our region for clean transportation, and it's known for its major investments in clean tech. We identified a feature that positioned NBI's electric vehicle assessment capability. So while other competing solutions had some small tools to help fleets assess whether their vehicles could shift to EVs, NBI's solution was the only one that was comprehensive in its approach. With some investigation, we verified that NBI actually held a 20% global market capture for this service. If you have a mature solution or product, launching your product in Boston, it brings everything into focus in a new way. What happens is the intensity and the focus that you apply to your efforts bring a heightened awareness and an attention to your customers. It helps you direct all of your attention to the market, and you start to really closely focus in on how your offering is being received. And when you begin to experience that competitive environment, you really start to pay attention to what's in your toolbox that you can use and what will help you stand out. When you look into your current offering today, can you bring to the front a feature that has been underexposed, that could potentially be of great value to your customers in this environment? Have you done a side-by-side comparison of all of your features against your competitors? And are you able to clearly point to the features or services in your offerings that really stand out? Now is a great time to be analyzing your offer with a fresh pair of eyes, pulling out features that might be especially relevant to your customers and bringing those to the surface, potentially repackaging them or blowing them up, amplifying them, and ultimately marketing them in a way that solves today's problems for your customer. Doing this work will create focus and it's going to drive you to new segments or new communities that you haven't drawn from before. And these are new sources of customers. I had to post this photo. It's such a great example of that point. Who are all these people? This is an event, a very curated event. It was lovely. We arranged it for NBI. And what's interesting about it, aside from all of the beautiful Canadian flags, because we had it at the consulate, the executives who attended were from communities that NBI had not previously targeted in an explicit way. So they hadn't directly reached out and tried to saturate those markets. Once they launched and promoted their EV feature, they found great interest from the clean tech community. And we pulled in people from the city of Boston, the state of Massachusetts DOT. We had a major supply chain logistics company. We had one of the major ecosystem players. They all came because they were in the clean tech segment. So these connections never would have been made, or if they would have been made, they would have been made in a very traditional way. Instead, we got out of the box and we positioned NBI in a new community and we pulled in very high level customers that they would like to get in front of. So when you add to the fact that we were able to do that with the message that NBI clearly conveyed in their presentation that day, their marketing for the event was so good. It becomes clear that taking a deep dive on your offering can provide not only access to new customers, but new communities of customers that previously were not targeted. When you transition to your new offer, you've got to take the time to craft that new message and convey that new value very clearly. We were able to do that with NBI in the context of their new offer in the green community of Boston. But there's so many other examples as well, and here's another one. So why is there a massive ship on the screen? And what does this have to do with messaging and being clear? This is the Odyssey, and it's owned by another great company called Leeway Marine out of Nova Scotia. Again, how can you talk about great Canadian companies and not mention the tremendous resources your country has in ocean tech, as well as the very capable, courageous, and hugely talented people in that sector? We have to talk about this. So again, how does the work Leeway Marine is doing relate to this current environment we're in? And what changes, if any, are they making to their offering? First of all, let's understand what they do. They're a leading Atlantic Canadian marine data acquisition service company. They provide fully crewed offshore ships and inshore vessels with the region's most experienced technical teams. They do hydrographic and geophysical surveys and ocean tech testing and research and much, much more. So I wanted to understand from Jamie Sangster, the CEO of the company, how the company was being impacted in light of this crisis. His answer was so interesting. Jamie said, in terms of our current response, we have essentially militarized our working zone. No joke, I'm not even permitted aboard our vessels. Unnecessary risk to the crew and ship. We've implemented the same processes and procedures based on our experience managing biological warfare aboard Navy ships. They're doing pre-assessments for clients and crew, 14-day quarantines. Their other vessel, Striker, is on standby to respond and evacuate any ill crew, and on, sanitization protocols and so forth. He went on to describe that in his environment, it's all about keeping sailors healthy. And then he said something that really got my attention. He said, the COVID situation really feeds the narrative of our remote and autonomous operations. Zero crew, zero emissions, 7 Cs. For him, there is a transition he's making absolutely in his business. But the silver lining for Leeway Marine is that their superior technological capability. In this context, it's remote monitoring and autonomous operations. It has never been in greater demand. This is an industry that has sort of really had a hard time adopting that remote technology service. So my suggestion to Jamie is that this is the time for Leeway to transition their messaging, push the technology play to the front. The remote capability should be the focal point. And what that means is when you're crafting this message, remote becomes the drum you want to beat. When you look at what you're offering, is there a technology piece that's finding its moment? Zone in on it, make it the first part of every message your customer sees, then push harder. Do a mass emailing to your client base, drawing attention to it. Make sure it lives on all of your communications prominently. Make it your new mantra and do it quickly. Jamie and his team have other powerful stories to tell. They have a story about a recent trip to the Arctic that went awry, but there's a positive end to that story, and the team's resilience and quick thinking comes through. He's writing that story now, so I don't want to give you the full scoop. You'll have to wait for it. An important step you can take today is to think about the stories and messages of resilience, risk-taking, courage, and more that you're experiencing. These are all playing big right now. As your customers and colleagues, all of us are searching for inspiration and motivation to navigate complex problems. And the key point here is that when you create these stories, just be sure that you underline it with your expertise and that it's relevant and it's something that your customers need. When you look at other very practical and tactical steps you can take right now, one of the most important things you can do is identify champions and thought leaders in your community here in Boston. You have a rare moment right now where these people are more available than they usually are. That's because they're under pressure to find solutions, to innovate, to get their teams back on track with being productive, and they have a responsibility to their organizations to drive growth, even in these times. So these high-level contacts are actively looking for technologies and innovators that are aligned with their mandates. As you capture your differentiators and you reposition your offers with new messages, you'll be in touch with these people. You'll be ready with your messaging. You can also tap into what they're doing and what they know to inform your work. So be in touch with this community now. I wanted to give you a tool and a way of thinking about how you can map your champions. This is just very simple, just a way to organize your thinking about it. To define where your champions live, you need to start with the sources of champions. Now, this is a pretty straightforward approach, but there's actually a lot to it in terms of the workload of it. You have to really dig in. So when you look over this list of sources for where to find champions, you want to think about not only where you can find them, but what you're going to be asking for their help with. So for example, when you want referrals, you go to your new customer. If you want referrals for new customers, you go to your existing clients rather. With trade association contacts, you want to request introductions to large enterprises or companies that you can't easily get in front of. Government economic development executives will introduce you to the people in your ecosystem that support your work, like service providers, and those range from lawyers and bankers to coaches and so forth. These folks are really well connected. You also want to look to your research and science institutions. They're going to be able to connect you to technologists. They can also help you identify your competition. And even your enterprise innovators are going to be able to be a sounding board for your technologies. They will review your technology and vet it. They can help you understand how to position and how to align with what they're offering. Accelerator and incubator folks are so well connected. They have a massive network of all of the players in the ecosystem. So you get the point. Everybody I just described, they're actively online right now, especially now. And if you direct your attention to assembling your list of champion targets, you could have this done within 4 to 8 weeks. You could have a powerful network of people that know about your business, understand the value of your offering, and they can help you. And they might even make introductions for you. So what you want to say to them and how you arm them with your own messaging is another piece of this work. And we can work on that together. We can work together on that. And I'll talk more about that at the end of this webinar. Here's a short list. I just want to help you kickstart the process. And I'm sharing with you this insider tip. These are my 3 first must-stop organizations for all new companies. You've got to go in there and check these out. Obviously, you want to look at the board of directors, the staffs and the teams, and you want to dig in and really find out what it is that these groups are offering. Many of the clients that I've worked with have either presented at these organizations' events, they've exhibited, participated in conferences, they're presenters and speakers, attendees, and supporters. So you've got to start somewhere in Boston. These are great 3 places to start. There's so many different ways you can engage with your clients, whether it's a discovery session or one-on-one interviews, and the feedback can come from either your customer support team or from your sales force. You decide how you want to collect that information and from who. The format and the venue are important, but ultimately what you really want is the information, the insight, and the human connection. To reconnect with your customers right now is so important, and video calls are our only link to our customers right now. So one very doable action you could take is reach out to your community champion organizations here in Boston once you identify them and explore the option of a sponsored roundtable with your prospective Boston customers. I've done several of these over the years, and they're a very effective way of collecting customer information. What you're trying to discover primarily is what is the biggest pain point they have now, how has this crisis impacted them, and where are they deriving the most value, or where could they derive the most value. Focus your discussion on these 2 topics and organize a deep dive. You'll want this to be highly engineered in the context that this is not a free-for-all, but rather a directed conversation to get the information you need to create your next offer. To give you a more concrete example, I'll explain how I would go forward with this. For example, if I was working with a fintech client, Boston has accelerators and incubators for just about any industry or sector you can think of. And right now, they're all trying to move their communities online. The bread and butter of the accelerator business is networking and connections. And so getting online with programs and opportunities as quickly as possible is something they're all focused on this week and will be in the coming months. So with that said, if you were in the fintech space, for example, a very tactical move would be to identify who are all of the accelerators that are working in that area, find out what their programming is, begin by identifying those, make a short list, and then you would do a deep dive on them to understand who are the supporting partners and the supporting sponsors. Again, using Mass Challenge as an example, they have a very solid fintech program sponsored by big enterprise businesses. You could contact Mass Challenge, find out if there's an opportunity to engage with their partners, how to do that. Is it fee-based? Can I just come and join a conversation that's already organized? How does it work? Because these partners are your future customers and you have to get in front of them. You've got to start somewhere and you have to learn what they need. So explore with your new Mass Challenge contact what the options are. There may even be programming already scheduled that you could just plug into. It's a very strategic way of getting in front of more than one enterprise at once, and if you're prepared, that's the key, and you have a directed discussion planned, you can insert your business to that conversation. Figure out how to adapt your offer based on what you learn. The key point here is that you need to be there, and you need to be meeting with your enterprise contacts, connecting with your peers and champions, and you've got to be involved and informed about what's happening here. I know it's so much, but you've got to do it. All right. So I've walked you through 4 practical steps you can take right now. And there's so many more, but what I'd like to do now is talk with you about how you can move forward. So I'm going to be offering some short, 15-minute each virtual sessions on topics like the ones you see here over the next several weeks. And I'd like to invite you to join in. So if you've been working with me in Scale Up Hub, you can just join in. These are complimentary and they're strategies and activities that I think they might be of interest to you since you completed your experience here recently. So alumni, watch for the email link to join and sign up. The first one is going to be about how to make sure you stay broadly visible in the market so that you remain present in the communities and networks that you built here. A few of you have told me that you're hunkering down and preserving cash with an aim of re-engaging in the fall, and this is about making sure that when you do re-engage, that your network is still aware of you and that you're ready to keep progressing from where you left off. So we'll be talking more about that in some of those first tactical sessions. Now, if you haven't been in Scale Up Hub and you're just beginning to build your network, you can also benefit from this session because I'll be talking about how to move from unknown to known, and I'll be offering some ideas and actions you can take to establish your presence here. I also have a special program that I have designed just for you folks who are not in Scale Up Hub or have not participated in my other programming. First thing is you don't have to be a business that's already down here to participate, and you don't have to have been in a trade mission because that implies that you have familiarity with the market and that you already know how to launch. So you don't have to know how to launch to engage in this program, and you don't have to have experience with launching to be a part of this experience or be on a trade mission before. Regardless of what stage you're at, what we're going to do is we're going to walk through with you the steps involved in a launch. The program that we use to go through that is called the 30-Day Road to Revenue Virtual Masterclass, and it's a community of entrepreneurs who want to launch, are launching, or have established operations in Boston, and they represent every industry or sector you could imagine. So when you come in to work with me in building your launch, we work through these steps, and I'm going to walk through what that looks like. The biggest benefit of working through these steps is that you're given all the tools you need to put the right building blocks in place for your launch. You'll craft your messaging, identify your champions and your top 10 prospect list, and you'll have your first real plan of approach within 30 days. You could actually be speaking to your new network within a month, and shortly thereafter, gathering information and insight to what your U.S. customers want and need. There's no better time than now to do this work because companies here are actively seeking ways to engage with solutions like yours and to collaborate like we've discussed. So if you come into this experience with a mindset of understanding what the problems are in your space, and you're open enough to creating solutions for those problems based on what you learn, this could be a very effective way of initiating your launch here. We're going to walk through that now, and for those of you who have already gone through this work with me, you're welcome to sign off now and watch for my message after this webinar, which will invite you to the first tactical session, or you can stay on and listen in to be reminded of some of the things that we worked on together over the course of your year. You're also welcome to dig into the work with fresh eyes now that you've been to the US and participated in Scale Up Hub or other programs. You may find you have a different perspective on this work, or you may want to update some of the work that we've already done together. Let's jump into the masterclass. I just launched the masterclass this month, so you're the first ones to participate in this virtual format. Having said that, I've been working with entrepreneurs and doing this work for more than 20 years. And what we're doing is you come into the portal and we work through the steps together. The way it works is you'll receive 4 virtual teaching sessions, a new one each week. We have Q&A calls and several tools that I've developed for each module, which are yours to keep and you can use them as often as you like. I also included, because of this dynamic time that we're in, an opportunity for you to get listed in a directory that I'll be creating with you, for you, that will go to my select list of enterprise contacts. And I'll tell you more about that in a minute. What the experience feels like is each week you log into your portal, you receive content via the teaching session, one a week, and then as you're going through it and working through the tools, you send me your questions that you have as they relate to your business. So, for example, if we're working on what are your champion communities in Boston and you don't know where to start, you might send me a message that sounds like, Chris, what do you think about my positioning? And then we work through that question during the Q&A, which is live, so that each week you're getting the answers and information that you need that are customized to your business. And we go over those questions in a live Q&A, and you send me those questions in advance so I have a chance to look at them and respond well. So we record all of this, and then you can go back and you can listen to it again or at your convenience. In addition to the 4 modules, we're going to be doing these tactical sessions that I just described, and that would be included in your experience as well. So there's several touch points with me during your 4 weeks, and you can also get all of these resources in your course portal, which we'll be setting up for you. So the first thing we're going to do is look at how we create our network of people, and in this environment we really want to think about how we can do that. Where everything is so dynamic right now, the question becomes, who will help and connect us and help us get introduced to the people who will be either our future buyers, our influencers, or our supporting colleagues and promoters. I walk you through how to create this group of supporters and these champions, and I give you the tools so that you can make progress quickly in that first week. We also get our first messages drafted in the first week, and I make that really easy for you by giving you these pre-crafted messaging statements that you can just plug into. So we'll work through all of that as well. Then we're going to look at the Boston market and the region to identify where your first best prospects are, especially given the environment we're in right now. We'll create that list so that you can start positioning yourself with those people, understanding their communities, where you can find them, and then how they can find you, and taking time to look at the larger picture of your launch. This is where it gets really interesting, so you can dig into your specific communities, find your people, have your first look at competitors, and begin to really understand what the opportunities are for your product. In the 3rd week, we'll be reaching out to our champions and our communities and asking them how they can help us, if they can make introductions for us, and we're going to get all of our sales tools finalized so that we can start our formal outreach and get our plans in place. We're also looking at what are our longer term launch plans given this environment, what it will cost us, how will we resource our launch, where can we get those funds, what kind of people are we looking for, what does the operation look like. We'll be paying particular attention to what we can do right now that's really feasible. In other words, how can we be intentional, focused, and direct our efforts to the actions that will get us in front of our customers and immerse us in our communities here. And finally, in the fourth week, you'll be ready to actually get on a video call with your prospects and your champions. You'll be able to get your first feedback on what you've created, and you'll be collecting that feedback and reviewing it to inform your approach, your messaging, and potentially fine-tuning your prospect list. These first 4 steps that we work through together are so valuable before you formally launch, and we work closely together with our tools and our weekly calls to get as much of it completed as we can in that time frame. Once we finish here today, if you'd like more information on any of this, just reach out. The contact info is at the end of our session today, and we'll share everything that we'll be working on in this course. What I'm trying to convey here is that you'll be getting some very good value by working with me on this course. So when you think about what your cost would be to actually test launch your solution in your market, what you want to think about is the cost of hiring or contracting a person to do the work for you, or identifying one of your existing team to take on the work. It really requires a dedicated resource, which is what all of our Scale Up Hub folks know and have experienced. If you were to hire someone to do that work, you'd have your monthly salary, and that full-time person could cost you between $5,000 and $10,000 monthly, depending on what it is you want to achieve. Then you have to factor in whether that individual also has expertise in this market. Do they understand the opportunity, the many communities for each sector, the key people you have to be in touch with? You want to factor in whether this team member can not only communicate well, but understand how to translate your offer to the American customer, and more. So when I put the value on this, I look at what our team also does for our clients. So this is how we're identifying the value. And what's also valuable is you can really move at your own pace with this work and have time to think through the process of launching. So you're really being strategic about your launch by de-risking it in a way that ultimately will optimize your longer term investment here. You can work at your own pace, you've got all the tools you need, and you can access that as many times as you want. Now, I mentioned earlier that I had a special offer that I was including. It's like a bonus, and we'll be launching the course with a Q&A in the first week, so you can start sending your questions to us right away, and we'll incorporate in that first week. But the other thing that I'm making available is a bonus that I've been working on for many months, and I've called it the All Access Insider Knowledge Pass. It's information that I've gathered by speaking directly to my longtime contacts in 10 enterprises and understanding what kind of technology solutions they're actively seeking in the next 12 months. So you'll receive a copy of this report. We'll be holding a special separate session to discuss not only what these organizations are involved in right now, given our current environment, but how you can engage with them. And many of these companies who are also struggling to shift their workplaces and serve their customers have new problems they're trying to solve. So we'll review these 10 enterprises together, and I'll add more detail about what I've learned from my contacts in addition to what you'll be reading here. This is a way for you to understand what enterprises in Boston are thinking about and what they're looking for and what they're focused on right now, so that you can align your offering with what they need. You'll have that unique insight to what's happening here on the ground as we work through what I know and how it can help you here. Along with the Insider Knowledge Pass is this very special opportunity I mentioned earlier. And what that is over the course of the 4 weeks, we're going to be crafting your value proposition. I'll be creating a directory of high-value Canadian tech companies and presenting those companies in a custom directory to these 10 enterprise customers and enterprise customer contacts and others. This is a bonus for those of you who sign up with me in the next 72 hours. So after you have all of your messaging in place, we're going to pull from that work and create a directory listing that not only includes your name and contact information, but will publish your unique offer in the directory, and I will present it to those 10 contacts. This is a summer-fall 2020 edition of my directory, and it is something that I'm creating just for you and for my enterprise contacts. It's a way for them to have a unique window into the great Canadian technology that I have access to through all of you. So it's a great opportunity for you to become visible. Now the course is $14.95 Canadian, and we can also work with you on budgeting this if you need any help with that, and we can help you set up payment and so forth. And finally, here is my contact email address. Most likely you'll hear from me, and if it's not me, it will be my community manager, Jackie Llewellyn. Jackie's going to be working with me and helping get everything organized. So thanks everyone for listening in today, and we'll be following up this webinar with some really great information on the tactical sessions and some other resources that we think you'll find valuable. Everyone, take care of yourselves, and I hope to see you in the course portal and look forward to hearing all about your great businesses. Do be well, and we'll talk to you soon.